And I'd like to be the first to welcome you on behalf of the Waverly Community House to our Centennial celebration of 100 years of the Waverly Community House serving Waverly and the broader Abingtons. I cannot think, yes, please, a round of applause, please. If you just glance briefly at the program and maybe to your left and right, I cannot think of a better way to honor 100 years of the Waverly Community House than a gathering of the people we have today, of everyone from Waverly families to people who came from all over the state to celebrate this momentous occasion. I'd now like to welcome up to the stage Ethan Cotillo. Ethan is a Our Lady of Peace student entering the 6th grade. He is also one of my former campers at the Waverly Comm Camp, and he has performed across the nation in The Sound of Music, and he has so graciously agreed to perform the national anthem today here to help celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Comm. So Ethan, whenever you're ready, you could take it away.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow, thank you so much, Ethan. I'd now like to welcome up to the stage Hedrick Beelan to welcome us.
Well, again, Ethan, you did a great job. So let's give another round of applause to Ethan. Ethan, what are you singing tomorrow? We had you singing Friday. We had you singing today. But I want to thank all of you for coming today. Again, my name is Hedrick Beelan. I'm a son of Dorrance and Susan Beelan, and a great-great-grandson of Henry and Margaretta Beelan. And on behalf of their descendants, many of whom are here today with us, I want to welcome all of you to this special celebration of the Comm. Now, this experiment called the Comm started in 1919, and Mary Rhodes can check my math, but I think that's basically 100 years ago. It was also a little more than 50 years after the end of the Civil War, and we were still fairly young as a country, trying to figure out what was next with this system of governance we called democracy. And based in part on the democratic ideals our country was founded on, this experiment here at the Community House was trying to answer the question, how do you imbue the community with a sense of purpose and unity? And in doing so, improve the lives of every citizen. Now, the goals were bold: to build a community, to build a civic society, to build a sense of civic engagement, responsible citizenship, and civic philanthropy. And it was based on a shared responsibility, not just for this place behind us, but for the ideals it represented. A shared responsibility both financially and ideologically to unite around the concept of community for all its citizens. So the fundamental question was, will you join in the goal of enriching this rural community life? Now, from the Ackers to the Wollings and the Atkins, who I see back there, and to the Vipons, and for all the names in between, for a century, the community has responded to that question with a resounding yes. And for a century, each successive generation has built on and enhanced upon the foundation of community that the previous generation had built. And one person who embodies this is my father, Dorrance Beelan. In both visible ways and also behind the scenes for nearly all 100 years of the COM. My father's always been involved in the life of the COM. When he's been asked to serve the community, he's said yes, but always in a modest, humble, quiet way. Always focused on the results, always focused on the goal, always driven by a core value of service above self. He's instilled that value in me, and it's one that I try to follow every day. So, Dad, thank you. And his service to the COM continues, most recently as the honorary chair of the Centennial Committee, which is charged with laying the foundation for the next 100 years. So again, please join me in thanking my dad for his service in this important leadership role. I'm very excited to hear and to see over the last couple of days how the community has stepped up to say not just that this place matters, but also the ideals that it embodies matter. So in closing, although we're celebrating the past 100 years, I challenge each of us going forward to spend most of our time and energy thinking about the future, constantly asking ourselves, how do we keep this grand experiment of building a civic society moving forward? Just like Margaretta Beelan and her children did 100 years ago when they decided to invest their time and financial resources in the COM. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite the former board chair, Chris Kane, to come up and join us.
Okay. Exactly. Thank you. Thanks, Hendrik. Good morning, everyone. I first have to begin by saying the last 2 days have really, truly been phenomenal. And it didn't happen without a lot of work. And it happened with the work of the Centennial Committee and the staff of this great place. So I'd like to take a minute and just to recognize them with a round of applause. As I told Bill Scranton coming in, and he said to me, "You were president of this place?" I said, they were desperate. It was been my great pleasure and honor to serve the 2 terms as president of this organization. I really got to see the hard work, the advancements, and the beginning of this centennial celebration kick off today. The stage behind me and that I stand on was part of an addition donated and dedicated by F. Lamont Beelan in memory of his wife, Frances German Beelan, in 1956. In attendance that day were members of the Beelan family, Mrs. C. Wells Beelan, G.D. Andelot Beelan Jr., and our board president, James Vipond, and a gathering of friends and neighbors. Some of you here today may have been at that ceremony. Many of you are descendants of family members that were there. Since then, this stage has witnessed many significant days of history in the community as well as the COM. Today is a milestone for both. We look forward to a bright centennial year filled with events as well as a campaign to ensure the financial health of the COM. Thank you to all those major donors that have donated already, and we see future donations coming in the year ahead. As I think back the 100 years, I Googled something you couldn't do 100 years ago. What was going on in Waverly 100 years ago? And of course, this dedication came up, and it was the only news. And then I said, what was going on in the area 100 years ago? So I Googled Scranton in July of 1919, and the headline came up, shopping syndicate busted by Scranton police. So I thought, wow, things haven't really changed in Scranton in 100 years. Our goal to mark this centennial by turning the COM over to the next generation of stewards with the same promise as in 1919. And I'm happy to say that we will meet that goal, and I look forward to the great day celebrating the COM with all of you. With that, I'd like to introduce Mary.
Thank you. Good. Those are Steve's steps.
Yeah.
Yep. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the COM. We're here to celebrate a milestone, 100 years. No matter how long you've been away, just overnight, a week, a month, perhaps years, or even decades, the COM is a welcoming place in addition to being a beautiful building. My remarks are billed as the COM is for everyone. I'd like to change that to I remember the COM was for everyone, including me. My earliest memory of the COM was the post office. It was located in the area where the men's room is now. I was fascinated that by dialing some combination of letters on the two wheels, the mailbox would open and there would be our letters. Mrs. Griffin, the postmistress, was responsible for that magic. I loved going to the post office. My young memories are mostly associated with the war. For all of you too young to know which war, I mean World War II. Everybody was involved in the war effort, even kids. I remember saving tinfoil from the sticks of our gum, shaping the foil into huge balls at least 8 inches in diameter, and bringing them to the COM to be sent someplace to help win the war. I remember Rosie Stevenson, the executive director. He was here during the war. To me, he seemed very old and very sick, as indeed he was. Rosie had been gassed during World War I, and his lungs weren't very good, but he ran the COM. And I remember kindergarten in what is now the CRB room. Miss Corson was our teacher. I liked the feel, finger painting was my favorite activity. I liked the feel of the paint, sort of like chocolate pudding. At recess, we would be turned out to the playground. At that time, there was a long, steep metal slide, some really dangerous swings, a death-defying jungle gym, and the always empty wading pool. And none of this equipment would have passed today's safety inspections. But the jungle gym was particularly dangerous. One day, some of the alpha boys in our kindergarten class commandeered the jungle gym and dared us, less alpha girls, to climb. My best friend Jeannie took the dare, and Richard, from the top of the monkey bars, dropped a brick on her head. I took Jeannie to Miss Corson for help. Fortunately, the bleeding stopped. Jeannie wasn't taken to the ER. Her family did not bring suit. Richard was not expelled or suspended from kindergarten, and the unsafe equipment remained. And I remember flying up. It was not an LSD-induced trip, but rather the transition from brownies to Girl Scouts. We had to memorize we had to recite from memory the Girl Scout oath and promise. Both of them were a challenge for me. Before 1950, when Waverly joined with Clark Summit and Clark's Green to form a new school district, my memories of the COM are blended with those of Waverly School. The school day began at 9 and ended at The school day began at 9 and ended at 4. We had an hour off for lunch. Most days, after bolting down the carb-heavy school lunch prepared by Mrs. Ross and Mrs. Kachuk, we called her Mrs. Kachu, we would walk up to the COM and hang out. I have no idea how we got back to school before 1 o'clock to avoid detention hall because of tardiness. I suppose we looked at the clock on the tower. There were times when detention got assigned for other infractions of school rules. Detention was held in Mrs. Delavan's classroom during lunch hour. While there, us miscreants had to do 10 addition problems. Each problem was 6 four-digit numbers. If the offender didn't get at least 7 of the 10 sums correct, an extra day of detention was added. Jeannie was bad at addition, and she spent lots of extra days doing the sums. I wonder if the disciplinarians realized that one result of their punishment was to make kids hate math. And I remember the family Halloween parties at the COM. They were held on a weekday evening. Entire families, including parents, came in costume. And the Christmas pageant, where all the kids wore some sort of robes and held flashlights which illuminated their faces and made them look angelic, even if they were nasty kids. Fadi Vaipan directed the pageant for many years. Before the parking lot was constructed, during snowy weather, we would sit on pieces of cardboard and slide down the bank right outside the scout room. To me, the bank was very steep, and it was a thrilling ride. Those were the days before plastic flying saucers. Before the school jointure, the COM was where Waverly High School played basketball and performed plays. For basketball games, bleachers lined the sides of the gym, and they were always filled with Waverly team supporters. I don't think our team went on to glory, but everybody had a good time. Frank Mastro was part of the boys' team, and Dot DeWitt and Nancy DeRiggi were on the girls' team. I idolized those athletes. And I remember riding my bike to the COM. In those days, there were no gears on bikes. On really steep hills, which was most of the way to the COM, we had to walk the bikes. The return trip was a piece of cake, and we learned to do it without touching the handlebars. Of course, we didn't wear bike helmets. How could our parents have exposed us to such dangers? That's enough of I remember. My kids grew up here and hung out at the COM, sometimes with not such a good experience. One of my sons was declared persona non grata, guess which one, and banished from the premises for a number of weeks. He deserved it. All 3 of them agreed their lives were impacted by the COM. And my grandchildren, when they were young, looked forward to coming here with me to get the mail. They liked finding my mailbox, inserting the key, and extracting the letters and catalogs. Fascination with the post office seems to run in my family. Of course, this building is important, and the programs and special events are varied and interesting. But the spirit of the COM is what's most important, and that's because of people like all of you. So here I am preaching to the choir. We all love the COM. It's sort of like what Goldilocks said. Not too big, not too small, just right. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Mary Beelan Rhodes. I'd now like to welcome our Representative Bridget Kozrowski, up to the stage.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. And I must say, Mary, you have an awesome playground. I think that is fantastic, and you're quite the rebel, and you're a survivor. So thank you for being here today, and I really enjoyed all your stories. They were really remarkable, and I think that's why we're here today, because the history of this magnificent place. And Ethan, I think you get better every day. I don't know where Ethan went, but yesterday he was fantastic, and today he was even better. So I'm looking forward if he's singing tomorrow. And Hendrik Beelan, I would love listening to your words as well. You have a wonderful family. You should be very, very proud, and certainly today. I think your great-great-grandmother, Margareta, this was her vision. Community, as I said yesterday, I had the privilege of speaking yesterday on the side yard here. Community in the word Latin means come with unity one. And I believe that today really embodies that word, community, and our wonderful Waverly Community House, where I was a child and I grew up here. Yesterday I mentioned that I took piano, dance, tennis, basketball, etiquette class, to which I failed at every single one of those endeavors that my mother drove me over here and my sisters to take classes in. But the COM is a remarkable place to have grown up. I have wonderful friends today that I'm still in touch with, that I met here today at the wonderful activities in the COM camp and all of the activities that we were able to do here. My favorite activity was going to the canteen, and I believe the canteen is still open, or some sort of candy store today that we can go visit and remember how we grew up. Margareta Beelan certainly had that in mind when she created this COM. We are here today because of her vision, her values, her goodness, and her generosity. I came across some words that really reminded me of what she had in mind. And yesterday I mentioned that as we celebrate going forward into this 100th anniversary of the COM in the year 2020, which is perfect vision, and that was Margareta's perfect vision. Margaret had a long view vision. She was not interested in short view thinking. She was committed to building a foundation that would empower great women and men to achieve great things for hundreds of years to come. And I believe that's what Margareta did, and that's what we are here for today. And yesterday I was able to bring from the House of Representatives a proclamation and a wonderful framed gift here to celebrate this anniversary. So hopefully in June of 2020 we'll be here today to end this wonderful year of celebration. And thank you very much for being here today.
I would now like to welcome up to the stage the COM Camp Ensemble. We are going to put on a little bit of a skit called The Gift of the COM.
In January 1919, Mrs. Beelan hosted a family dinner party honoring her grandson, Lieutenant Nathaniel G. Robertson, Jr., and his close friend, Lieutenant George M.D. Lewis, two young pilots recently returned from serving in the U.S. Army Air Service in World War I.
Beautiful dinner, Grandmother. How are you doing since Grandfather's passing? It has been very hard on all of us.
I'm holding up all right, Nathaniel, thanks to you children keeping me busy. I do have one thing that is weighing on me, though. I wish we had some way to honor grandfather. He really loved his community, and I'd love to be able to create something permanent in his memory.
I know. I've been thinking of that too. George, perhaps a park would be good. Children can run and play in such a memorial gift. You know that stretch along Abington Road is vacant after the recent fire.
You know, I have been reading professional architecture journals, and the idea of a community house recently struck my mind. I think it would be a great way to honor Mr. Beelan.
That is a wonderful idea, George. I knew you would come up with something great. I would be happy to give you your first commission on behalf of the Beelan family.
Yes, I agree. This is a lovely idea, and it seems to fit with everything Henry believed in. I think he would be very proud of this idea.
Right across the front. Don't go up the steps. Don't go up the steps.
This is a wonderful day that we share with the people of Waverly Borough and all of her neighbors as we lay the cornerstone of the Waverly Community House. Paul, look at all these people. Everyone's in great spirits. I feel so lucky to just know that your father would be proud.
I know, Mother. I feel the same way. He would love this place and all of the enthusiasm felt here tonight. Look, the ceremony is beginning. Here comes Governor Sproul.
Thank you all for coming. This is certainly a wonderful occasion. It is with great pleasure and pride that I am here on this unique occasion. I cannot think of a finer thing to do than what Mrs. Beelan has done, and I am proud as a Pennsylvanian that it is here in Waverly. The gift of the community is engraved in human hearts, and it is our responsibility as a community to take care of it. Thank you.
What a wonderful day, don't you think, Mother?
Yes, I feel so blessed to be here in the presence of such great friends. I have no doubt that the Waverly Community House will be a wonderful asset and resource to our community.
By 1927, the COM was no longer an experiment. The success of the dream required additional space, and Margaretta contemplated additional social and recreational buildings. Alas, she died in 1927, but her 6 children, led by executors Paul Beck Beelan and Alice Beelan DuPont, collaborated to realize it in her name, as we learn from a series of letters, all from 1929.
June 1929. My dear Alice, I am sending you a set of plans for the proposed memorial building. I'm also having a man in New York send you a watercolor of the front, so that you'll be able to talk with Ma intelligently and see whether you approve of doing this. Understand that I think we can improve on this after we decide whether we want to do it. But this is the idea that Mother and I had talked about before she died. Very truly yours, Paul B. Beelan.
Dear Paul, I hope the landscaping will be extremely simple and conform to the present community house. Trees and grass would blend in with the general colonial idea. We enjoy the country because it is the country. Your affectionate brother, Don.
My dear May, 10 days ago I sent a letter to a dozen people in Waverly who I felt were best qualified to express an opinion. As most of them asked not to use their names, I left the signatures off. Here are their suggestions. Paul B. Beelan.
Dear Mr. Beelan, I am very glad to answer your letter regarding the community house. If more rooms were available, I would make the following suggestions. A building for library and museum, a new or enlarged auditorium, an additional tennis court, park facilities for women and mothers of small children, and a play area.
Dear Mr. Beelan, I do think the whole success depends entirely on its staff. I have heard criticism about too many of the present staff bossing people.
A banquet room and kitchen, a kindergarten room, meeting rooms. Thank you for your interest in our community.
I think that in addition to the present building would be a good thing, as many uses could be made of it.
I believe the community house needs more room of that kind that will probably take care of its athletic activities. Boy and Girl Scout room and kindergarten.
Oh, and if a kitchen could be added to the gymnasium?
My dear Alice, don't forget that the school and community house have been worked as close together as a pair of Siamese twins. Your affectionate brother, Paul.
Dearest Alice, the trouble is that Paul feels that he does the things, therefore he should say what should be done. And sometimes he lets his enthusiasm run away. But there it is. Paul gets things done and pushes people into line willy-nilly. I am too lazy to scrap about it and too fond of Paul. Though I suppose all big families get to rowing sooner or later, this is no subject for us to row about. Best love, Charles A. Beelan. Dear Paul, I have your letters, for all of which I thank you. Alice and I went over the plans, and to me they seem satisfactory as a starting point. Of the idea itself, I approve heartily. And I do not know of anything that would seem a more appropriate memorial to Mother than this addition to the community house, which she gave to the village. I agree with Don that the landscape plans submitted by Mr. Leavitt are too elaborate, and I would prefer to see open lawn and trees. I do think another tennis court would be desirable. F. Lamont Beelan, Mott.
Dear Paul, Mott says, quote, he feels that a very careful scrutinize of the plans should be made in order to run no risk of spoiling the present house. Thanks to you, we have the land, and with no worry about the block being spoiled, we can get together, I'm sure, on something that will please us all and be as lovely a memorial to Mother as hers to Father. Devotedly, Alice Beelan DuPont.
My dear Alice, what the community house really needs in order of importance is club rooms, kitchen, music quarters, kindergarten, and the auditorium with seats. Do you wish the addition to merely harmonize with the old building, or be a distinct memorial to Mother, or merely an addition? I had rather hoped whatever we did would distinctively be a memorial to Mother, and I do not think additional land would be. She was always opposed to land as land, and wanted life. The cost of upkeep has worried me. It would have to be discussed. There will, of course, be good years as well as bad. Your affectionate brother, Paul B. Beelan.
Dear Paul, the thought goes through my mind often. When our generation is gone, will the younger ones take up with enthusiasm what most of us have done only with money, but which you have done with never-ending work and patience? I am still in favor of the building if it meets with the full approval of the others. Devotedly, Alice.
Dear May and Don, last Monday, Paul and I spent the entire evening going over the question of the memorial. The second elevation, prepared by George Lewis, is very good and quite in keeping with the original house. I have racked my brains for something else which would perhaps appeal to all concerned, and I frankly admit I can think of no other. I think, therefore, that the proposal for the addition is the one idea which not only would accomplish the most, but would be entirely approved of by Mother. I am prepared to go along with this plan. With much love to you both, I am your affectionate brother, Mott.
And so it was the collaboration that led to the building of the north and south wings, deeded to Abington Township on May 9th, 1931. Sadly, Paul and his brother Charles did not live to see it completed. The community house was further expanded through a gift from F. Lamont Beelan in April 1956. This included the construction of this stage and an expansion of the facility in memory of his wife, Frances German Beelan. Today, the community gathers. Today, the community gathers to commemorate 100 years of service, remembering the words of Paul B. Beelan, who wrote this vision statement 7 years after the original founding.
When we started the Waverly Community House, many people thought and told us we were dreamers. We admit we are dreamers. Pessimism cannot paralyze our faith. We dream with our eyes wide open and every faculty alert.
And so it continues.
One more round of applause for the ComCamp Ensemble, Erica, Chris, and our two sign holders who did a wonderful job. I would now like to invite up to the stage Rick Lewis.
Notice how I handled that one. Wow, without son-in-law and others, I'd be in real trouble. Good morning, Waverly. I'm Rick Lewis, a longtime old resident of the Abingtons. 1942 to 50, student at Waverly Elementary, which at that time was full high school at the 12th grades. And an after-school visitor to the Com Canteen. But I'm here today to offer a few remarks about my dad's oldest brother and my uncle, George M.D. Lewis, the architect who designed our Com in the image of the Philadelphia Independence Hall. Wow. With the support of Paul and Margaretta Beelan and others, by the way, Paul was Mary Beelan's grandfather. The Com became a reality. It was completed in 1919. There is a room here at the Com which displays the sketches and plans of George's work. George was one of 7 that grew up in Scranton. He went to Scranton Tech, followed by 4 years at the University of Pennsylvania. Following graduation, he enlisted in the First World War and under the leadership of Fiorello LaGuardia, he was the first aviator to fly a plane over the Alps. George had many more accomplishments, just to name a few. Waverly Elementary School, which you know, Church of Good Shepherd, Clark Summit State Hospital, Marworth, and my father's house. He lived here in Waverly and died at the age of 96. Before he died, I asked him what the secret was to his long life. His reply was twofold. First, he said, I lived a life of moderation. And then he added, I've got to talk to your father about that. The second thing was he added honey to his cup of coffee every morning. So George, thank you for your important contributions. I know that you have lived your life by the saying over the Waverly School, plan your work, work your plan. Thank you.
I would now like to welcome up to the stage William W. Scranton III, the 26th Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's a lot cooler up here. I could go on forever. Note to self. Never again follow Hedrick Beelen on a program. Bridget and Mary have done a remarkable job of talking about their remembrances, which is the title of, supposedly the title of what I'm supposed to talk about. And that's because when I sat with Chris Kane and Susan Beelen and Maria Wilson, and they were asking me if I would, honoring me by asking me whether I would come and say a few words today, suddenly all these old memories came out, and I just blabbered on and on and on and on and on and on, and they couldn't get 2 words in edgewise. So I think Maria just said, hey, well, let's make him put his remembrances on up here, and maybe he won't go on too long. So that's why I'm here. My remembrances are like many that you've heard already. I'll go over 1 or 2 others. First of all, I haven't had memories of the whole 100 years, but I'm frighteningly close. I, too, came up here and engaged in the dangerous playground, Mary, after school. And I don't know how we survived it, but somehow we did. I learned to roller skate here. I don't know if anybody else did, but I learned to roller skate here. Thank you. Now, it's not in great demand these days, but, you know, it might come back. I learned to bowl here. There were bowling alleys when I was a kid. And the most exciting thing that happened was that they went from bowling alleys with pin boys who actually set up the pins. There's some heads nodding in the audience. Thank you. I didn't dream this. Who actually set up the pins after each roll. And then the most exciting thing happened, automatic pin setters came. And, you know, I was off. I could have had a career in bowling if I was any good, which I wasn't. I had my stage debut here in a school play, and it was actually a musical. And the only thing I remember about it is that we had a song called Let's Protect the Union about the Civil War. And the program, which was printed not by the Waverly Community House, but elsewhere, called it Let's Protect the Onion. And these are the things that you remember. And we did our best, and we protected the onion. Like many of you, I've gotten my mail here. I have voted here. I learned to use a library here. It goes on and on. My kids went to comm camp here. My wife's, who is smarter than I am and sitting in the shade, my stepdaughter, her daughter, ran the comm camp here. And they're just too many memories. But I want to talk just for a second, not about specific memories, but about remembrance itself.
I'm sure many of you have gone through this, but if you really want to memorialize this magnificent building, take 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes and go through the movie reel of your memories here. And if you're like me, this remarkable, wonderful feelings will come up that will be what the Waverly Community House is to you and what it is to this community. Remembrance is something that we can do each individually alone or with friends, but to me, it's probably one of the finest tributes we can make to this unique place. I've always loved the name of the community house. Community, and we talked about this, the Beelan vision in the very beginning, which was to create, enhance, perpetuate a community here in Waverly, but it's clearly gone far beyond those boundaries, to Abington Township, now Waverly Township, and the Abingtons themselves, and people come here from all over. But this has given us who live in its gravitational pull a sense of unity and community that far, I'm sure, exceeded the hopes and dreams of Margaretta Beelan. But I particularly like the name house. You can go all over this country and see civic centers and community centers, but they don't have many houses. And this is a house. This is a place where we feel at home, and I think there was a quote in the newspaper this morning that said, the Waverly Community House is everybody's second home. This is not an institute, there's not an ounce of institutional feeling in this building. You walk in and there may be kids running through the hallways and parents yelling, stop. There may be something going on, an antique show or an art show or whatever it is, or a meeting. And it feels like home. And having lived through 70 plus years of the Waverly Community House, I can tell you it has, although for all of the changes it has gone through, it has changed remarkably little. And you walk in here and immediately it's as comfortable as an old shoe, even though the things that go on in here are as important as things of anything that can go on in the civic life of America. From nonprofit community organizations starting up and running to scout meetings, to parties, to whatever it might be. But it's still, this stately building is home. And I think we all feel it. It has that sense about it. I don't want to step down from here without saying something that is very important to me personally, and obviously to this building, and that is the contribution of the Beelan family. This is a remarkable family, going back many generations. I've had the honor to know many of them and to be related to some of them, many of whom are here today. It's one thing to have a vision of a community and to donate and to work, as we have heard, in the construction of this building. It's quite another to retain an allegiance to that generation after generation after generation. And there have been many fine and hardworking people who have made this the place it is, but it would not be here. It would not be alive here. It would not be part of our life without the Beelan family. And it is an extraordinary contribution. So please give them a hand. But the real name of this place is the Com. Not the community house, it's the Com. What is a Com? Well, the Com is what you remember. That's what it is. And there is no other Com in the world. This is it. This is the one and only Com. And it is what you remember of it, and it is what you feel of it, and there are no words which can do it justice. Winston Churchill once said that we create our buildings, we form our buildings, and afterwards they form us. And anybody who has spent any time in this building has been formed by it. And I will say this to all of you, and I think I can do this without fear of contradiction, that you can go anywhere in this country or even this world, and you will not find another Com. And
subsequently, and also, I will promise you that this this community house, with the help of you and your descendants and me and my descendants, and with the good wishes of the Beelan family, will be here forming people for many, many generations to come. Thank you.
So note to self, never follow William Worthington Scranton to the podium, especially when talking about the calm. Thank you, Bill, that was magnificent. If you don't know me, I'm Maria Wilson. It's my honor to be my pleasure to be the director of the Waverly Community House. And I'm happy to report that this is just the beginning of the Centennial year. So if you had a good time this weekend, just wait till what the year holds ahead of us. I suspect that over the past few days and even the past few weeks, many of you have been recalling many friends, neighbors, and family members who once graced these rooms and hallways, and so have I. But the spirit of civic engagement and philanthropy is alive and well and resting in Waverly, and attracts the nicest people. And that is all of you, all of the volunteers who worked on this event, and all of our speakers who honored the calm today with their presence. Hedrick, whose children sent a gift in honor of the grandfather with the words, "You taught us the importance of giving," and their notes will be in the time capsule. Thank you. Chris Kane, who has led the board with effective leadership, and who, like Willie Mays, while out in center field, is always right there when and where you need him. Thank you, Chris. The beloved Mrs. Rhodes, whose granddaughter Willa sent in the very first gift to the Centennial over 2 years ago, and unfortunately found herself on the mailing list until Mary informed us she lived with her parents. I think we've corrected it. And Bridget, of course, who's a bright light for our region. We're so grateful for her active participation throughout this whole event. WVIA, what can I say? Chris Norton, Erica, Barbara, and Neil Prisco. They have been great partners with the COM for many years, and they join us with enthusiasm, skill, and grace whenever we make the call to WVIA. The COM Camp fills the COM with joy. It's beyond happiness. It's pure joy that rings through the halls for 12 months out of the year, and I look forward to this season every year. And with that, I do have to point out once again, Baby COM, put together. We're not sure might be in the lobby after today. Rick Lewis, who overcame grave concerns about being able to speak once Josiah told him he had to do it, because he wasn't going to. I was hoping the two of them would have made a joint effort. And the Honorable Bill Scranton. You truly honored us with your recollections and added a rich dimension to the program. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Finally, I would like to add a round of applause to the honorary chair of the campaign, Dorrance Beelan, who almost 3 years ago agreed to serve with enthusiasm and passion for the institution. Thank you, Dorrance. The COM has a bright future because of all of you. So now everyone is invited to tour the building. We have a magnificent Centennial display set up throughout the hallways. There's a gift shop, small works gallery in honor of Harry Lamont Beelan. George Lewis exhibit, which is extraordinary. We'll only be here for a few more days. Our thrift shop is open. The archive will be open, where you can meet Gia, our archivist, and also the COM blogger. And that's located on the library wing. So let me conclude with the words of Gertrude Corson, right? Oh my gosh, it's 1 o'clock. This is so perfectly timed. Or 12 o'clock, perfectly timed. Let me conclude with the words of Gertrude Corson. The first kindergarten teacher at the COM, many other communities are hoping and working that they too may have community houses. In a measure, they are looking to us. May we always remember that it's the spirit that counts, that the Waverly Community House may be one of true happiness, example, and service. Thank you. Lunch will be served around 1.